Welcome everyone to this very informal meeting today, where we just wanted to give a little bit of information on the virtual human twin in light of certain activities that are ongoing in the European space. So this is not intended to be an absolute, we're not speaking on behalf of anyone, so we're not speaking on behalf of the European Commission, of any funding agency. We are just speaking on behalf of ourselves. So I think that's an important disclaimer to be made at the start. Another disclaimer before we get going is also that I see that there is a very wide variety of people and backgrounds present here in the meeting. So some people that know already the VHT quite well, and others that for which I'm not so sure how much they already know about the initiatives. So we will be giving a very basic introduction as well to make sure that everybody is aligned with what is ongoing. So my apologies for those that are heavily involved in the VHT. This will be a lot of repetition. We will leave also a substantial time for Q&A at the end of the meeting, so that any questions that you have, we can try to formulate an answer if we have the answer for you. With all of that being said, I now give the floor to Martina for first a very short introduction into the VPH Society, who we are, what we do, before we get going on the virtual human twin aspects.
Thank you, Liz, for giving me the floor. So I will be happy to introduce to actually the one of you that don't know us very well yet, a little bit what the VPH is and the activities that we do. So the VPH Institute, that actually got recently rebranded VPH, the Society for In Silico Medicine, has been active since 2011 with the aim of advancing in silico medicine worldwide. To do that, of course, we bring together all the stakeholders involved, beginning from the scientists that we represent, and then including all the relevant stakeholders in the field. So the industry, healthcare providers, regulators, policymakers, and of course the patients. Our membership, as you can see, which is a little bit articulated because we also have institutions, 40 in this case, and a number of personal members, which are roughly estimated more than 1,000 all over the world, are spread actually in 25 countries worldwide. So we are actually growing each year, and we're really happy about this. As an ecosystem organization, of course, we do not work in isolation, and we collaborate with a number of other organizations. The first one that I would like to name is the EDITH Alliance, which is an industry academic network which has the same goal of promoting the use of in silico medicine technologies in healthcare. In the EDITH Alliance, we actually represent the academic side of the community, meaning that to be part of the EDITH Alliance, a scientist would have to come through us, and we detain 50% of the voting powers in equal partnership with the industry. We also have formalized collaboration, meaning with actually official memorandum of understanding with EDITH Italy, Accademia del Paziente Esperto, where we collaborate mainly on activities focused on bringing the patient closer to the development process, and with other scientific societies like ASB and STIF. But we do have a number of established interactions with other organizations, such as, just to name a couple, EDITH Europe, EPF, European Patient Forum, and Team MB. So our end goal is actually to deliver safer and better healthcare for everyone. But to do that, we place the patients at the heart of everything that we do. So we learn from them, we make sure their voices are heard and incorporated in the development process of the in silico medicine technologies. As we really believe at VPH, this is the only way to ensure that we can deliver really impactful solutions. And how do we do that? Actually, as a scientific society, we do a number of activities that are typical of the organizations like ours. So we are our biannual conference, the VPH conference, which is now at the 9th edition. And the upcoming conference, if you're not aware of it yet, will be in Milan in September with over 500 abstracts submitting. We really aim to make it a very impactful event. And if you're not planning to come, you might want to consider coming now. We also offer a number of activities that are dedicated to the younger side of the community to support early career researcher and in general promote professional development. In the specific, we offer awards, we organize summer school, and we do have mentoring events, especially at the conference. We also organize, in collaboration with the Young Scientists Committee, online seminar with leading experts in the field, but also interdisciplinary panel on different development aspects, and as well as webinars more dedicated to less scientific topics, more focused on key aspects for PhD students related to their career development, as for instance, one of the last that I place here, what do modelers do outside academia? But apart from this, VPH has always had a dual nature, and we've always taken care of a number of activities that are indeed not usual for a scientific society. So we always strongly focus on outreach and in different aspects. First of all, we gave also a lot of importance to the stakeholder engagement activities, because we want to make sure that all the stakeholders that are actually involved in the uptake of silico medicine are heard and consulted. And in order to do that, we organize a number of activities that goes from mapping the stakeholder landscape and implementing specific strategies, such as we conduct interviews, we organize focus group, and we deliver and analyze surveys. And to do that, of course, we follow the responsible research innovation principles. Our core activities have always been, in general, communication. We do a lot of communication activities. Not only we produce and distribute news items via our newsletter that is actually running since 2013 and through our social media channels, but we create valuable communication materials. We identify success stories, we interview experts, we produce infographics, and also in the past, we focus on video production, and in particular, we deliver an animation serial called Code and Cure Understanding in Silico Medicine that we actually produce in collaboration with EDITH, which aims to explain in very layman terms what in silico medicine is, the different technologies connected to it, and the expected impact of the technologies present in few case studies. And this is indeed an ongoing initiative that will be enriched. We focusing on other specific topics in the near future as well. We also have our own podcast series, the Digital Twin Theory podcast, where our science communicator, Davide Montesarchio, interviews experts in the field, giving visibility to specific topics, presenting latest developments, and with the main goal actually of untangling the complex scenarios of the in silico medicine world. So all these communication resources that we produce, but also guidelines for the stakeholder engagement activities that I just mentioned, are collected in a do-it-yourself, let's call it like this, book, which we officially named the In Silico Medicine Info Kits, which want to offer researchers involved in this type of activities all the baseline information and materials to implement stakeholder engagement in full autonomy. Here you can find also the QR code to download it. And also, as part of the general outreach activities, we also do a lot of advocacy, because we want to make sure that we have the right policy and legislation in place to support the full adoption of in silico medicine. So we are constantly actually involved in monitoring the policy and legal framework. We scan and we contribute when possible to open consultations to make sure the voice of the community is duly represented. We meet and have close working relationship with regulators and policymakers. As you can see here in the picture, our executive director, Liz, was actually invited at a plenary session at the SUN committee at the European Parliament to give a presentation on the transforming role of in silico medicine and AI in healthcare, and that was September last year. But we also contribute to the standard side, proposing standard and SOPs, and part of An interesting part of the work that we have done in collaboration with the In Silico Work Consortium can be found in this book that I included here with the QR codes towards good simulation practice, which actually indeed include practices and good standard on how to develop, evaluate, and use in silico trials. We collaborate with our membership and with other organizations and industry partners in specific working groups. One of them is actually specifically managed by VPH on a topic that is indeed dear to us, which is clinical engagement. But we have broader collaborations with the Avicenne Alliance on a number of different working groups, tackling from different perspectives the barriers that are still standing towards the full adoption of in silico medicine, as you can see here from the research, the policy, the international affair, and the applications point of view. Last but not least, we also contribute to a number of EC-funded projects, thanks to all the expertise that we develop and the activities that we are actually doing and I've just presented you. So we started to do that constantly since 2021, when we were partners in 3 out of the 4 projects funded under the H2020 call accelerating the uptake of computer simulations. In the specific SimCore in silico ward and SynCardio test. We are still partner of a couple of projects, Real MDR2X, that are currently running, and a Belgian funded project, Digital Twin for Personalized Health. But last not least, we coordinated and had a very important role in general during the EDITH coordination and support actions, which actually brought us to this webinar today to give you an overview of all the latest activities regarding the advanced simulation platform that the European Commission is getting developed. And with this, I will, of course, leave the floor to Liz that will give you the update that you are expecting on this specific topic.
I will start first, given again that I'm not entirely sure that everybody is at the same level of what it means, of what virtual human twin means. I have a little bit of an introduction into digital twins, virtual human twins, in the context of the European initiative, and then I will have information on the VHT and the time frame at the end. So the European Virtual Human Twins Initiative was officially inaugurated in December 2023 in Barcelona, and it aims to bring together all of their investments at the interface between ICT and health. And it really wants to provide a framework, an ecosystem, and all the support necessary to develop or to advance the development and the uptake of virtual human twin solutions in health and care through a collaborative ecosystem, through the right infrastructure, public infrastructure, by leveraging the compute methods and infrastructures that we already have available in Europe, break down the silos, facilitate research and technology development in this space, and of course always stay in full compliance to EU values and rules in terms of privacy, safety, security, etc. So what the virtual human twins, how it is implemented, if you go to the website of the European Commission, you'll see that there are 4 main pillars. And there is the ecosystem pillar, the research pillar, the infrastructure deployment, and then the uptake in clinical settings. And the first 3 I will say something on today. So let's start with the ecosystem. That was really the start of the initiative. And that went through the EDITH project. EDITH was a coordination and support action that ended at the end of 24, where the idea was really to develop the roadmap for the virtual human twins. And the first thing we had to do, of course, because it was still talking about digital twins back then, was to find a definition for digital twins. Now, there is a very strict engineering definition of digital twins that says that between the physical and the digital twin, you need to have a direct, real-time, and semi-automated or automated interaction, so that there is a continuous flow and iteration between the physical and the digital twin. Now, if you think about that in a healthcare context, then you end up with a very small portion of applications for which you can use this, because in very rare cases you can really measure all the relevant data, and then having an automated feedback or a semi-automated feedback, that's even harder to imagine how that for diseases and long-term multi-morbidity diseases, how that even works. So we decided to go with a very broad, inclusive definition for digital twins in healthcare that talks about the direct use of personalized or personalizable models for prevention, prediction, screening, diagnosis, treatment, and follow-up of a disease, but also the evaluation, optimization, de-risking, selection, personalization of intervention options, and even healthcare systems. So this is very broad. It's still important that there is this notion of personalizability, but of course not all models when developed are immediately personalized, but they can be personalized. And this personalization doesn't always happen automatically. There can be human in the loop decision making. So this is a compromise figure that was proposed in the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine report a couple of years ago, which also supports the broader definition or slightly broader definition of digital twins. Why stick with the term digital twins? Well, because when talking to patients and clinicians, it has a very easy way of making them understand what the goal is of this technology. And then the European Commission came in and solved the conundrum by creating the term virtual human twins, which of course doesn't have that legacy definition, that strict engineering definition. But for all intents and purposes, virtual human twins have the same components as digital twins. So there's a hardware, there's always some aspects related to hardware for the gathering of the data, the compute. There is the software part for the simulations, and then there is a middleware where this integration needs to happen. Now, when we talk about virtual human twins or digital twins, this doesn't need to be one thing for the whole person. It can be a digital twin of a cell, of a tissue, of an organ, of a tumor, of an entire system. In some cases, depending on what you want to do with it. It can be a digital twin of a therapy. And I'll say a little bit more about some examples so that you can really place how this is being developed at the moment. It can be a digital twin of a manufacturing setup. This is what you see in pink is the development of cells and extracellular matrix in a three-dimensional scaffold in a bioreactor. And it can be digital twins, as I mentioned, of medical facilities. The in silico technologies that are used for these digital twins, they can range, they can be very diverse. They can range from the black box AI machine learning technologies that in health and care are really used a lot when it comes to imaging or when you have high quality, strong data sets. But in many cases, we also use white box models, and white box means that you start from a mechanism, a physical law or a biological mechanism or a chemical law, and you translate that into mathematics, as is, for instance, the case when we interpret the raw output from imaging devices in order to make interpretable images. But in many cases, the models will actually be a combination of different technologies, partial differential equations, for what we know, and then there is a part that we don't know, which we will complement with data and using some more data-driven technologies. So to have a combined, to answer specific questions. So when we choose a technology for digital twins, it really depends on the knowledge that you have. I was giving several examples of digital twins. This one is one that is currently in clinical trial, where they're applying a clinical decision, or where they're using a digital twin of the patient's glycemic or metabolism as a clinical decision support system for nurses to determine how much insulin a patient or nutrients a patient should get when they're in ICU. It is based on part on the mechanisms that we know from metabolism, and then complemented by a data-driven parameter that is patient-specific, which is insulin sensitivity. And what has been shown already is that by using this clinical decision support, it reduces the burden of the nurses, especially when in the future this can be integrated in a more automated manner. But it is also able to reduce the ICU long-term stays by a day, which is a huge cost saving. Another example is that of the left atrium appendage occluder device. So for patients with atrial fibrillation, this appendage is a place where blood clotting can occur. So either they can get an anticoagulant therapy, or the clinician can place an occluder device. Now there are multiple occluder devices, different sizes, different angles on which they can be placed. And this is usually done in preparation of the surgery based on medical images. But what happens is that 1 out of every 5 cases, the surgeon has made a wrong determination and needs to put in another occluder device during surgery. By using digital twins of the left appendage and simulating the blood flow and then simulating the placement of different occluder devices, several companies, including VHT, but also VHT now Materialize in Belgium, provide services that will help determine what occluder to put. And this has reduced, this is data from VHT now Materialize, that this takes down the need for a second device during surgery from 1 in every 5 cases to 3 out of every 100 cases. There are digital twins that focus on genomic data from the patient. We know that patients have different metabolisms. You have rapid, slow metabolizers, but then you also have adverse reactions, which is 5% of hospital admissions are due to adverse drug responses, which is quite a significant cost to society. So by having a pharmacogenomic digital twin, we can tailor drugs, and there are already over 600 drugs that have a genomic biomarker attached to them. We can tailor the drugs to specific patients. And then there are digital twins like this one from the University of Catania that are used in clinical trial design and augmentation to do in silico clinical trials in different phases of the actual clinical trial. And in this case, it would be between phase 1 and phase 2 of the clinical trial to better prepare it. This is an example of a digital twin that is based on the universal immune system simulator that they have developed, and it is applied specifically to the use case of tuberculosis. So in the model, which is an agent-based model, they also include specific aspects of the disease and the vaccination strategies. So these are all different ways, different digital twins, different ways of building the digital twin, different ways of applying the digital twin. So how can we now, or what is now the aim of the virtual human twin initiative? Well, it started, as I mentioned, with the EDITH coordination and support action, where we brought together the ecosystem and developed the roadmap for the virtual human twin. In the ecosystem, we started from the patient and the civil society organizations and the healthcare providers, which are the beneficiaries and users, or should be, of the virtual human twin. We have the creators of these twins, which are in academia, industry, and research institutes. Communities are very important because they provide this interface between the end users or the tech developers and the policy platform or policy level. We have the enablers, which are the infrastructure actors, the funding and the financial actors. And then we have, of course, the governing actors and the LC actors, which provide management of the VHT. And all of these come, of course, in a wide variety of people. And of course, clinicians are not just users. They can also be developers of digital twins. And so there are many links between all of these different parts of the ecosystem. The most important thing is that during the EDITH CSA, we were able to bring together over 800 people in different activities related to building the roadmap. And together we created a document that is quite substantial, but that tries to really take people through all of the phases of what a virtual human twin is. So starting from the current situation, the context in health and care in Europe at the moment, to develop the need or to identify the need, the current barriers, and the vision for the virtual human twin. And then based on that, we went into a description of the technology and the infrastructure that is already available, what can be reused from other places, what is still to be developed, or what is required for the aim for what we want or envisage the VHT to be. The ethical, legal, social aspects have been discussed, including the standards and the regulatory science that is currently in place. All of the policies have been discussed with all of the challenges that they would pose for the implementation and the uptake of the virtual human twins in an EU context. And then we went and talked about the different users, the market, what are some of the business models that can be used, and the sustainability. So how does that work in a European context in terms of public infrastructures? And then in the end, we formulated 30 recommendations to lead to a successful VHT. So all of this can be found in the roadmap of the virtual human twin, which is quite comprehensive, but it is also fully well structured. So it should be easy to read just the bits and pieces that you're interested in. We created a policy brief that is a high-level summary of the why, what, and the who, not so much of the how, of how to do the virtual human twin. And so this was one of the ways to bring the ecosystem together. Another one that was created during EDITH and has now been taken over by the European Commission is that of the Virtual Human Twins Manifesto. It is a two-pager. So if you really don't want to read a lot, it's a two-page document that we then asked organizations to sign. And not just Lies from VPH, but actually, or Lies from KU Leuven, but it was the vice rector of the KU Leuven, for instance, that signed this. So we have from industry, from academia, from all kinds of other organizations, we have the signature on the manifesto that clearly indicates to the European Commission, and within the European Commission also, that there is an interest from the field in this. If you haven't signed it yet, or your organization hasn't signed it yet, it's still open. If you go to the website of the Virtual Human Twins of the European Commission, you can then sign up for this manifesto, and it really helps to give a clear message to the Commission that this is important for the ecosystem. We also at the moment have a health policy platform, thematic network, that is talking about AI and virtual human twins, and especially the adoption thereof. There's one more webinar that will be organized very early in July, and then a statement that needs to be prepared to, and we will do this together with the community, so information will be distributed for this in the VPH newsletter and on social media, which would be like an addendum to the roadmap, focusing specifically on the adoption and the impact. Okay, so this is what we have in terms of the ecosystem for VHT. What has started now is the development or the deployment of the infrastructure. There was a call already for building an infrastructure for ICU data that that has been awarded, and so that is already running. But the procurement of the platform, the contract for that was signed in 2025, and the official procurement, or the start of this procurement project, was in January 26. And you see here the partners involved in building this infrastructure, and these partners at the bottom, they are not well, they provide services in the scope, so they're collaborators in this project for specific tasks, and as mentioned already, VPH is there for the user community. The important part of the concept of these of the advanced platform for virtual human twin modeling, integration, and validation is that it should be a collaborative, community-driven platform that is distributed and flexible in its use, that allows for cutting edge and innovation to take develop, or innovative developments to take place in a secure, privacy and IPR compliant manner. Now, the baseline architecture for this advanced platform is that there is a central backbone. So it offers that has a repository where you can store data sets, but then later and further implementations of this platform, there will also be a link with, for instance, the health data infrastructure and other federated infrastructures like UCAIM and others. This is not for the immediate future. This is what will be done later on. The advanced simulation platform then offers access to these data sets, to the modeling assets, to the resources, and it allows people to work together. So there will be a user hosting environment that connects through the Access Federator with the infrastructure. And then when we are working together and we want to run these models or work really on the implementation, there is the orchestrator that will help the user to schedule, to perform the work, and in order to really develop, enhance, combine different models and make sure that they work as they are supposed to work. So the European Commission has written a very detailed set of high-level requirements. There are a number of architectural principles that are listed here, like federation, modularity, loose coupling, cybersecurity, data protection, trust, interoperability, collaboration, reproducibility, openness, and agnosticism to the applications and the technologies, scalability, elasticity, growth and coherence, diversity and resilience, and visibility. So these need to be baked into the design of this infrastructure. What furthermore is important, that in the current implementation of the virtual human twin platform, the operations will not support product or service regulatory approval activities, so regulatory studies and trials. That doesn't mean that things generated within the VHT cannot be used for such purposes, but the aim of the platform is not to provide those kind of services. It's also important to know that there are two data categories. There is the intellectual property data, so data sets, models, methods, tools, and there is the personal data of users and non-users. When it comes to this health data and the disease data and data sets that are part of the platform or that are used as part of the platform operations, it is very important, and this is also important for any project applications that want to describe how they can use the VHT. These data need to be either fully anonymized or synthetically generated. So the platform does not support, in its first implementation, does not support the use of personalized data. So this is something that is important. If you want to contribute a model to the platform that has been built on personalized data, you also have to have a synthetic data set that create a synthetic data set based on your own personalized data set so that it can accompany the model on the platform. Exploitation beyond pre-competitive space is also outside of the scope of the platform operations, and there will be an LC governance framework that is created specifying the IPRM, for instance, in March 2028. The way these requirements are now managed, so the European Commission has developed the high-level requirements that I just mentioned, and I will come back to that a little bit more. And what we are doing right now is developing the low-level, the user requirements based on those high-level requirements, which will be documented. So we do a lot of elicitation sessions where we are trying to capture from the widest variety of users possible what would be their desiderata, what it is that they expect, what is their current use or interest in these kind of infrastructures, to bring this all together and really have a very clear, testable set of requirements, which we can always attribute to a specific source scope through the traceability documentation. And this needs to be stored in a traceability matrix so that there is a very explicit link between high-level requirement, the user stories, and the low-level requirements and deliverables of the project, so that whatever happens, that all of this information is available, that everybody can see what was taken into account, why, when, and how this affects the use of the platform. So in order to do this, we have these user requirements gathering sessions, which are called elicitation sessions or user requirement sessions. And then these are really taken and then transformed into the specific low-level requirements for the platform. This is very critical because it is very important that whatever is being developed is developed in a way that is most useful to the community, but that also the choices that need to be made, because it cannot be everything to everyone, that it's very clear that there are actionable and verifiable development tasks so that it's very clear what is going on. The user group that has been created is there to refine these low-level requirements, so provide input on functionalities, on workflows, interfaces, based on every time real-world needs and expertise. So we start with examples, and then we ask specific questions with Miro boards and WooClap and things like that, to help define user stories or domain-specific requirements, to make sure that what we think needs to go, or what the consortium thinks needs to go in the platform, that this is validated, that these assumptions are validated, and that every requirement that is identified is clear, is feasible, is testable. And then make sure that the user needs are the direct drivers of the platform features and design choices. So these high-level requirements, you can find them if you look for technical specifications of the tender, which is still publicly available. So if you type in advanced VHT platform in the European in the ECAS portal, then you will find these documents. We're happy to provide links if you need them. Now, some of the high-level requirements, so that you know what these are, go, for instance, on the VHT framework and interoperability. These are two foundational pillars that allow to ingest, curate, integrate VHT datasets, models, and then also generate simulation and co-simulation outputs across the entire ecosystem. So with the VHT framework, this is to annotate the data, to align the resources in an anatomical reference, to have a shared basis for interoperability, integration, validation across the ecosystem, and to do, of course, a version control and change log management and track the evolution. This is very important because if there are clear agreements on the framework, this is something that even if you're not working in the VHT infrastructure, you can already implement in your own development, so that when the VHT platform becomes available, there is a very easy interoperability and there's a very easy ingestion of your tools, or a use of other tools available there. The interoperability requirements, so the general principles are that it needs to be across users and organizations, that it needs to be federation-based, so that it needs to operate in a federated, decentralized architecture, that it must support automated assessment of model compatibilities for coupling workflows. So if I want to couple one model with a data set, or one model with another model, and then find the right data set, so this needs to be supported. And it needs to be tool and data agnostic, meaning that there need to be specification standards that are and interfaces, especially, that are technology agnostic, because, well, in our community and application domain, as you've seen from the examples, there is a wide variety of technologies that can be used, and they need to find a way. We need to find a way for all these things to be coupled to one another. The Access Federator will be the primary user-facing software product from the entire infrastructure. And it will act as the integrator, for the integration, validation, and interaction between users, the federated repository, the orchestrator, and then the compute, storage, and network services. So the links to, for instance, HPC centers. So there's user access and administration that is there, that needs to be supported. There is the data and model integration. So how to enable users to integrate their data sets and support any commitment to the VHT federated repository. Do compliance checks so that users aren't burdened completely on their end with all of these things. Do a validation or check the interoperability. Make sure that there is a human readable interoperability report, and make sure that when curation is necessary or remediation is necessary, that this is triggered to the user. Workflows, design, and management. So to have the workflows, or to share the workflows that are uploaded. Make sure that this is easy to understand, so that it's not only the highly technical users that can use this, and help to align the pre and post processing steps and monitor execution. Do the visualization and interaction, so that it becomes more intuitive to use this, but also support additional technologies such as AR, VR, where relevant, to have that additional user interaction, and explore also how the outputs can be integrated there. And then finally, there is the advanced modeling and AI support for different applications. Also different technologies that might be used to create surrogate models, hybrid workflows, and really support in general model and data-driven pipelines. And then finally, there is the IPRM, so the intellectual property rights management, that is very important because it goes to sharing, protecting the resources that are in the VHT platform. We can only have this thing working if there are sufficient resources available, and people will only share resources if they see, if they feel protected, if their interests are protected, and they see how this can be done in a manageable time frame. So the IPRM policy must really define, so govern all of the VHT assets, make sure that the rules are clear on how to do this, and enable compliant use of the VHT assets. Then there is the development of this IPRM policy. So this is for the contractant, what they need to do, make sure that this is in line and this is getting input from experts. And then there is the legal policy and policy compliance to support users in their legal compliance activities, includes technical safeguards for IP and things like that. So in terms of the user group, they have been established based on different principles to have computer modelers, to have data stewards, curators, clinical biomedical researchers, people with expertise on infrastructure and platforms, people from different sub-communities, and then people with IPRM and LC expertise. So these are all part of the user group. And the timeline, which might be also very relevant for people here, is that so we started in January 26 with the specific contract 1, which focuses on the building the platform. We had a kickoff in February. We are running until October these low-level requirement elicitation session every other week. If you're interested in joining as a in the user group, please send us an email so that we can ask the European Commission to add you for you to be added to the user group. You will then receive an invitation for an EU survey if we get the approval by the European Commission, and then you can be invited in these bi-weekly meetings. There is also a specific contract 2 that focuses mostly on the compute or the compute, storage, and networking services that started in April. In September 26, there will be a first MVP of the one-stop shop, which will be, if you will, the portal site where all the information and the communication will happen. 20 and 21st of October, there will be the VHT days in Brussels. The Commission will hopefully soon make the announcement of the days and what they will look like. And then after that, for the duration of the project, there will be 3 weekly user group meetings so that whatever decisions are made, they're still always brought back to the user community and the user group, and input is taken on board. The first version of the platform should become available in October 27 with one validation use case that will be discussed at the VHT days, or of which the choice will be started in the VHT days. And then the end is foreseen in December 29. So with that, we have the infrastructure deployment pillar. Then there is, of course, and I'm almost done, the research pillar, which is the one where we already have the Health Aid project, so the VHT for personalized disease management that are ongoing, that started a couple of years ago. There is the IHI for improved prediction, detection, and treatment approaches for comprehensive stroke management, for instance. Some of the other open IHI calls also are used for VHT-related research. And then there are the 2 calls, VHTs for cancer that is currently open, and VHTs for integrated clinical decision support and in prevention and diagnosis. That is with the due date of September next year. Now, these are have very specific requirement in terms of what they need to do. For instance, the VHT in cancer very much focuses on using VHTs to also have that mechanistic understanding of these rare or cancers with bad prognosis at the moment, to really integrate this and use the in silico tools to get this better understanding and to help to benefit research, but also ultimately, of course, the patient. Whereas if we look at the text that is written for the integrated clinical decision support, they already really go a step further, and they talk about showing cost benefits through the use of these VHTs. So the way these projects can integrate with the advances of the VHT platform, I already indicated that whenever something becomes available in terms of deliverables for interoperability standards, those kind of aspects that will help everyone to align in the future, because it will not be, when we look at the VHT for cancer and the timeline of the VHT infrastructure, the infrastructure will not be there to do all the developments. Plus, all the developments need to only be with synthetic or anonymized data, which for a lot of these VHTs in cancer is not going to be the case, because they will be on patient data. So there are ways that you can already ensure compatibility, interoperability, without actually really working in the VHT environment. And so there, we're trying to set up a system or a description of some things that can be done. The European Commission will also help to align these things once the projects are approved. But yeah, the reason of doing this webinar now is to already provide you with some more information that you could use in these calls. And just to wrap up, finally, coming back to what Martina presented with VPH, a little bit of self-advertisement. We're happy to help in all of these aspects that you have seen, and happy, of course, but if we're not a partner, to answer any questions that you might have in this space. So.
Thank you, Liz. We already have a question from Noah. Could you clarify what is meant by AI support, visualization support, and similar support categories? For example, can projects rely on experts from VHT network to provide AI services, visualization expertise, or?
What support should mean is that there should be tools available that will help in the visualization, that there will be tutorials. So one important part of the VHT one-stop shop is to provide tutorials for all of the different components inside the platform on how to use them. When it says support, that means that there needs to be that tools need to be available to help in creating your workflow, or to help in creating the visualization of your output. That is what is meant by support. There will be an interaction. There will be, for the duration of this platform, there will be a user manager or technical user manager that will answer questions, but it's not to provide the expertise of how to best what AI tool to use. You should use. That is something that would be for you to evaluate with the experts that you have. But the choice, the menu should be there. There's an infrastructure support question. So would projects be able to use computational resources provided by partners such as Clinica or BSC, or train or run models? So in the specific contract too, there is a large number of compute hours included to, and I would imagine that would be to support the early adopters in running things, and that would be, so the ones that are involved are Clinica and Sano in these contracts. But the idea is then afterwards that if you have credits or tokens available at your VHT or at your HPC infrastructure, that somehow the connection could be made as well there. But I imagine also in grants, this would be something that you apply for funding to do this in the future. Are the targeted users mainly researchers? What about business? So that was the comment that I made on the pre-competitive nature. So at the moment, anything beyond the pre-competitive is not foreseen. But then that doesn't mean that in the future these things can be done. So exploitation beyond pre-competitive space is outside of the scope of the platform at the moment. But that doesn't mean that it's only researchers. Also, clinician researchers or other, in the future, even other users would be, it depends on the model that you have. Okay.
Another last question has just come
Yes.
from this.
Is there a way for an organization of the US to engage in the implementation aspects? In the user group definition at the moment, this is heavily focused, or this is solely focused on EU countries to define those things. But once it is available, there is nothing that said that there cannot be external users. What we also, of course, also do, and that is part of the reason that we have these kind of webinars, and there will be more also in the future, that we can have one-on-one conversations to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel here, that we can align with whatever is available. And then there is always the possibility of collaboration in specific projects, depending on the requirements of the projects. There are additional participants or that are agreed upon in framework contracts between other geographies and the European Commission that can participate and even get money. But that really is at the discretion of the people who are putting together the project. Best way for an open source software to get used by the community. Yeah, so there are multiple already software programs already available that indeed will be a specific subject of engagement between the technical people implementing the platform to see how these collaborations can be done. It would probably be good to bring this up during elicitation sessions, and INRIA is already approved. So Go, I don't know if you're already part of these user community meetings, but this is definitely something to bring up there. I will also flag it on our side that we're now focusing mostly on the infrastructure part, so what is already available from infrastructure, and then have those conversations. But open source software should definitely also be part of that. I think that's it in terms of the questions. All right. If you need anything, you have our contact details. Please include Martina in your the manager address to make sure that you get a timely response.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you very much. Bye.